Investor relations. Investor relations helps you understand the company better. Investor relations submits press releases and financials to SEC.gov, so you and I have the same access to information at the exact same time for free as the big hedge funds and mutual funds do. Investor relations sets up and leads quarterly earnings calls, and we'll look at an example of this soon, but basically companies have to release earnings 4 times a year, okay, publicly traded companies. And what happens is investor relations issues a press release 4 times a year, usually when the market closes. Half hour later, they lead an investor conference call. And it's usually a webcast. And you and I can get access to it just like everybody else in the world because it's available free on the open internet. And investor relations sets up management presentations at events. We're going to look at investor relations, and our case study for the remainder of this course is going to be LinkedIn. Let's check out LinkedIn's investor relations website. And most large publicly traded companies have superb websites that have investor relations resources for everybody. And in 2002, a new law was created called Regulation FD, which means fair disclosure. And it's awesome because everybody gets access to financial information and material information at the exact same time. And that's great for you and me because we have the same access to information that everybody on Wall Street or in the large mutual funds and hedge funds do. It's awesome. It's awesome. They no longer have the edge on us anymore. Let's check out LinkedIn's business. And so we can go through here and learn pretty much everything you need to know about the company, right? Learn about the management team. They've got a superb management team. Jeff is awesome. The investor relations group is amazing there too. And actually, I recommend that you sign up for these as well, right? You can enter in your email address, and the second they release something to SEC.gov, which we'll cover in a couple of lectures, the second they issue a press release, and the second they announce a new event, you will find out at the exact same second as everybody else. And so it's always a best practice for you to sign up for email alerts for any company you're looking at. And so when I worked in the hedge fund industry, I would have 30 or 40 companies' email alerts hit me almost every day or every other day. Okay, so you can find out more about the management team here, right? You can learn more about LinkedIn, obviously. You can find out more information about the board of directors, the investor relations team, and then just FAQs or frequently asked questions. And this here is Matt Sonnenfeld. I think he's actually the best investor relations person on the street. He also heads up investor education there too. He's awesome. Good guy too. All right, so let's see what else we can look into. So we've looked at the management team a little bit. You've got upcoming events here. And anybody can listen to these webcasts. It's incredible. Just fill this stuff out. You didn't have to get invited to the Palace Hotel in San Francisco to watch LinkedIn present. You and I have the same access as everybody else now. It's awesome. Okay, cool. And the same thing with Morgan Stanley. They had an event, right? They had a keynote with the CEO, Jeff Weiner. You can click here and you can watch it or sign up for it again, right? So pretty cool stuff. All right. And you can even look at the presentation from past earnings releases, that sort of thing. It's pretty neat. So let's see what else we have here. All right. So we've got their quarterly numbers here as well. And so when a company issues earnings, okay, what happens is usually at 4 o'clock New York time, a press release will hit, and companies release earnings 4 times a year, once a quarter. And the press release hits the tape, everyone reads it really fast, and then about a half hour or so later, there's an earnings call, which we'll talk about later on in this course. Let's just take a quick look here at the press release. Okay, so LinkedIn released 4th quarter numbers, and this is pretty much like all press releases you'll see. They always say really good stuff at the beginning. They had a great quarter, blah, blah, whatever, all that good stuff. And then they'll talk about a couple of cool revenue metrics. So here, revenue increased 34% year over year, right, in the quarter to that dollar amount, okay? And then they'll talk about their 3 revenue line items that they have. And we'll go through this in a lot of detail later on in this course, okay? So they have 3 major revenue line items, and we'll talk about that at length later. And this is important. They offer something called guidance, okay? It's the business outlook where they say, well, we think in the first quarter, we're going to have revenue and earnings of whatever amount it is. And they usually give a range, right? And then they give guidance sometimes for the full year as well. And if this guidance is better than the street expected, then the stock goes up and vice versa. And I think they actually gave poor guidance when they released this earnings result and the stock went down. I thought it was a broken stock and not a broken company. And I get excited when companies that are incredible secular growth winners like LinkedIn sell off a lot because it's always a good opportunity to buy. Okay. And it's interesting because Warren Buffett once said that the New York Stock Exchange is the only store in the world where consumers sell stuff when it goes on sale. And so what happens is you have prepared remarks from the CEO, right? And then the CFO says a couple of cool things about the quarter. And then what happens is way down here, they have all the financials, okay? And so we reviewed how this stuff works in previous sections in this course. Here's the balance sheet, right? And they always provide it on a quarterly basis, and they provide a couple of other balance sheets from past periods as well. So you can compare quarter over quarter moves, like here over here, or you can even compare year over year moves, like here over here. Like look at that, cash increased by that amount year over year, okay? And so this is the entire balance sheet. And then here we have the statement of operations. And this is basically an income statement, okay? They got revenue at the top, and they've got all the expenses just like we covered, right? And then there's non-cash stuff like depreciation, okay? And then they have information on the cash flow statement right here, okay? And so just like we created in the last section, we start off with net income, right? This is cash flow from operations, net income from the income statement. And then we add back all this other stuff, including this, which is from the income statement, and a bunch of other things as well. Most of them are from the balance sheet, okay? And then they have financing activities, investing activities, just like we talked about before, okay? And then they have supplemental information. And this is really important because they only gave us total revenue up above in the income statement. But here it's cool because they're now giving us a number of different revenue line items. So that total revenue number is broken down into a couple of different sections, okay? Right here they have all their major revenue line items. And then here they have it by geography, okay? And sometimes I don't know if I'm going to use this stuff in my model, but I put it in my model anyway, just in case I use it in the future, okay? And then I have revenue by channel, field sales versus online sales. And these are basically quota-carrying sales reps, right? They have a quota each quarter. And then these might be telephone salespeople. And then there's something called GAAP and non-GAAP. And the financial statements we created so far, at least the income statement we created so far, was a GAAP, okay? And I'll explain what this means in more detail in future lessons, but let me mention it quickly here. So GAAP is generally accepted accounting principles, okay? And it includes every item, cash items, non-cash items like depreciation, etc. And then there's something called non-GAAP. And non-GAAP is another set of financial statements that's easier to understand than the income statement we looked at. Because non-GAAP only has stuff that is cash-based. So depreciation would not be included in non-GAAP. And it only includes stuff that's ongoing. So if there's a one-time legal issue that was in one quarter, non-GAAP wouldn't really have that, because non-GAAP is used by many Wall Street analysts to model recurring stuff longer term. And again, we'll cover this again later. But this here is just a table telling you how to reconcile between the non-GAAP and the GAAP, okay? And so the way you get non-GAAP in this case here is you take the accounting earnings and then you add back stuff that was non-cash, right? So if you gave employees stock-based compensation, that's not really a cash-based line item. And the same thing goes with non-cash other stuff like depreciation, et cetera. We covered that already. Okay. And then at the bottom here of the press release, they say, hey, we're going to have our result webcast and conference call very soon, blah, blah. So it looked like it was, actually this one here was an hour after the market closed that day. Okay. That's 2 p.m. San Francisco time, which is 5 p.m. New York time, which is an hour after 4 p.m. And then they say here, put this on your radar screen. We're going to have a pretty cool event that you can come to or you can listen to over the internet. Okay. And then there's a bunch of legal disclosures. And if you have additional questions, you can contact LinkedIn Investor Relations there or LinkedIn Press right there as well. Okay. So let's see what else they have when it comes to financials. Oh, interactive statements. That looks cool. Okay, cool. So what you can do here is you can look at every line item in all their financial statements, and there are cool little charts that pop up, I think. Yeah, there we go. right? So sales and marketing, remember the best analysts in the world look for trends in the data. Learn to read financial statements like a good book. And here we have sales and marketing trends over the past, 7 or 8 quarters, whatever it is. And this is just all the raw data here. A lot of times it's easier to look at charts though, because you can pick up trends, right? So looks like all their expenses are increasing. Revenue is, let's see, revenue here. Revenue is increasing, of course. Okay. And then, oh, cool, this is new. You can build a chart. You can actually map out everything here. I usually do it directly in Microsoft Excel, but you can actually create them here directly. That's pretty cool. Neat. Huh, that must be new. Cash flow as well, and then earnings per share. And diluted earnings per share just means non-GAAP. And again, we'll cover all that in more detail. And this is what I love right here. You can export the financials directly, okay, so that you don't have to go and create the financial statements from scratch. Okay, it's a pretty good idea for you. And let me just pull this into view. Yeah, you got a lot of great information here.